For those of you who have asked me and shown great concern about what is going on at Tandem Friends School, and asked me if I have reported my experiences about working there for Larry Goldstein and are wondering, as of last fall, 2009, why he is still directing musicals, and whether I ever resolved my dispute and been compensated, at least for the hours that I worked, here's where we stand. On the Monday before opening night, I went to speak with the head of school, Paul Perkinson. Mr. Perkinson told me that it was his responsibility to make sure that what was going on in that school is what is supposed to be going on. I told him that what was going on in the rehearsals for Rent was, quote, beyond unacceptable. His response was, "School of Life." For those of us who are wondering how Mr. Goldstein still has a job, there you are. I started to explain what was happening, not just in the School of Life, but in the school that he just told me he was responsible for overseeing. He asked for my card, and if he could get in touch with me later because he wanted to watch his daughter's volleyball game. The problem with this is that, as he must have known, the beyond unacceptable rehearsals were happening at that moment. Their students were being directed by the most horrendously incompetent musical director imaginable to sing on top of an amplified rock band without microphones. They were losing their voices in the few days before the show opened. I began to write a letter of complaint explaining my experiences. What I came up with was 40-some pages long, single-spaced. So, out of respect for Mr. Perkinson's time over the next 8 months, with the help of several writer friends, I edited and revised and finally came up with a letter the appropriate length. I delivered it at the end of the school year. Mr. Urban, Mr. Perkinson, if you're watching this, anyone else who is up to date thus far on our letters, you can skip this and move on to our next video. This is just catching up those who haven't read them. My letter to Mr. Perkinson. Mr. Perkinson, on October 27, 2008, I submitted an invoice for $1,000 as contracted between myself and director Larry Goldstein for my work as accompanist for your school's production of Rent, to which I am legally entitled, as I had done everything in my power to honor my end of the agreement and was forced to resign, both at the very suggestion of Mr. Goldstein. Remember that, his suggestion. And as he admittedly made it impossible for me to do, do my job, as explained in the following few of many examples. A. Mr. Goldstein did not schedule and at all times expressly refused to allow for the necessary musical rehearsals for both the cast and the band. B. At the time of my resignation, I didn't exactly resign. I told him it was impossible what he was asking for. At that time, Mr. Goldstein had provided the cast with no microphones, under the false and completely ridiculous claim that to do so was impossible. As a result, 1, the cast could not be heard over the band, therefore making it impossible for me to accompany them as I was hired to do. 2, several of the students lost their voices, including 3 of them, I think, lead players, or 4 maybe, which on the part of Mr. Goldstein is not only incompetent, but also negligent, and as a responsible adult, I could have no part of it. C. Love this. Mr. Goldstein listed me in the Daily Progress as the musical director. It gets better. It gets funnier, really. The details, the devil's in the details, as they say. That's why this is so long. But making this one page short, I had to leave all the fun out of it. 1, this was not the job for which I was hired. 2, Mr. Goldstein specifically required us to accept, in his own words, quote, really bad quality in our work, and then held me publicly responsible for this poor quality, which constitutes libel, as I am a professional whose livelihood depends entirely on my reputation for having a standard of excellence. I have received no payment except for a check for $250, which covers less than half of the hours that I worked. With a note attached from Mr. Goldstein that says that he was deliberately denying me full payment, not just for our contract, but even for the hours that I worked, as punishment for my attempt to collect the agreed amount. It reads, therefore, my cashing this check will serve as my acceptance of these terms. This is a flagrant breach of contract. It is my sincere hope that you do not support such deplorable business practices. On the advice of legal counsel, I did not cash the check. This is the second time that Mr. Goldstein has breached contract with me. As he hired me to accompany Greece in the fall of 2005, assigned extra pre-rehearsal work with no additional compensation offered, and then, after I got to work, fired me specifically to give the job to someone else who offered to do it for free. I have been advised that I am legally entitled to the entire amount of that agreement. As a Tandem graduate and a long-standing professional musician in the community, I am appalled by the lack of professionalism and respect with which I have been treated, and hope not only that we can resolve this as quickly and amicably as possible, but also that the appropriate changes will be made to allow me confidently to recommend Tandem Friends School Productions to my wide network of musicians who may be able to assist you in the future, as well as to the general public. I am submitting my invoice for $1,000 for rent. It is my hope that I will not have to resort to the extra trouble and expense of legal counsel. I would appreciate the $250 check from November's compensation for the breached contract for Greece. If I can clarify any of this further or provide more details, I would be happy to do so. Respectfully, yours truly. Not quite 2 months later, I received an email from the school's business manager, which reads, Dear Mr. Mook, Tandem Friends School has received your invoice for work on a drama production here at the school. Our records show that after you voluntarily left, the detriment that we suffered after relying on your completion of the contract was that we were obliged to hire another person in your role in order to finish rehearsals and put on the show. It sounds reasonable. Like I say, the devil is in the details. That's why all of these 40 pages, probably an hour of videos are necessary for us to get to the bottom of this. We therefore decline to pay your invoice in the full amount of $1,000. We have already sent you a check in the amount of $250, which our records show you have not cashed or deposited. We will offer you a final additional payment of $250, corresponding in good faith to your claim that the first offer represents half of the hours you worked. The total of $500 is our final offer to bring this engagement to a close. If you will please reply by email, The thing is, if I'd just gotten paid for my hours, I wouldn't be going through all this. I'd have dropped it. But Larry thought he could get away with this. And now I can get paid for almost all my hours. I did say that it covered less than half of my hours, but not much. The difference is negligible. What confuses me is this. If I'm the kind of person who does what he said, why would he trust me and say in good faith? That's what that means, right? We trust you, but we think you did this horrible thing and then tried to screw us out of $500, but we trust you? I'm out of time. That's where things were as of not quite a year ago. I just found this in my spam box. On to the next segment.